Am I the asshole for refusing to take my daughter to my ex-husband's wedding? My 42F ex-husband, 45M, and I were together for 20 years. We had a beautiful daughter together, Jocelyn, 14F. We got a divorce 5 years ago due to infidelity on his part. I was devastated. He was the love of my life and he betrayed all of the trust and loyalty we had built up. To make matters worse, he ended up in a relationship with the woman he cheated on me with. They got engaged 1 year later and are set to be married in 2 weeks. Honestly, I still am heartbroken over my divorce. It's hurtful to me that we were together for 20 years, and he can just go fall in love with someone else, as if I was nothing. However, Jocelyn was only 9 when we divorced, and he's a great father, so I would never want to come in between their bond. Jocelyn loves his fiancée as she's very sweet to her, but she doesn't know the reason why her dad and I divorced. I want to tell her when she's a bit older and he doesn't want to tell her at all. Anyways, I compromised with him that Jocelyn could come to the wedding, but that he would have to provide the transportation to and from the wedding, as I want no part of it. I don't want to drop my daughter off at his wedding. I don't want to see all the decorations and the happy guests. It'd just be too much for me. I didn't tell him all of that obviously, but he agreed. Today he calls me and asks if he can ask for a huge favor. It turns out that his future in-laws are flying in the morning of the wedding, and he has to go pick them up, therefore he can't pick up my daughter the day of, and wanted to ask if I could take her. I said absolutely not and asked why he can't pick her up the day before when she gets off of school. He said he doesn't want to make the drive twice, and that he will likely not have time as he has to prepare for the rehearsal dinner. I asked why can't the bride pick up her parents. He said she'll be getting her hair done and won't be able to. I laughed and told him there was no way I'd take my daughter, and that he'd have to figure it out. Boy, why did I say that? My daughter ran downstairs crying, face beet red 10 minutes after my conversation with her dad, calling me terrible and accusing me of not wanting her to spend time with her dad. I told her that's not the case and she demanded to know why I couldn't take her. I couldn't give her an answer and she ran upstairs crying. Now I'm getting messages from his family calling me heartless and cold and a bitch for trying to ruin his special day over a relationship that is long over. My family understands my point of view. But I feel terrible that I've upset my daughter. I don't know what to do. Should I just put aside my feelings and take her? Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for leaving the restaurant before my boyfriend's family arrived after I was told that I was going to pay for their meals? I, F29, have been dating my boyfriend, M35, Ricky, for 5 months. He's divorced but hates this word and goes with the word divorcee instead, since the first one makes it sound like he was dumped when it was him who initiated it. Anyways, he always go on long rants about his exes and say stuff like I hope you don't have this awful habit my ex has, or hope you like XYZ cause my ex didn't, and the list goes on. I found a second job recently and he has been having me pay every time we go out. When I protest he'd say he's going through a rough patch and is seeing how much help I can offer. Last night he invited his family to join us for dinner. We got to the restaurant first. He asked me if I brought enough money. I said why and he told me that he told his parents that I'd pay for their meals. I said why would I, and he went on about his parents going through a rough patch just like him. I said I'm sorry, this can't be a coincidence. He asked what I meant and I told him that I would not be paying. He insisted. I refused and said no. He then leaned back and said, well, you're here, so not much of a choice you have anyway, while laughing like it was funny. I silently got up, took my phone and purse and walked right out. He was shocked. He started shouting after me to stop and wait, but I didn't. I went home and he called me enraged, saying that I did a horrible thing walking out on him and his parents, while I could have just paid. I told him that their unfortunate financial situation isn't my problem and that I wasn't obligated to pay for their food. If they couldn't pay for their meals, then they should not go out. He got offended and said, and I could, you're making money a priority just like my ex did, then went on about how disrespectful my attitude was and how I made him look small in front of his parents and forced him to lie about why I wasn't there when they came. We've been going back and forth about it till now. He's mad and is refusing to speak to me till I apologize. I feel bad because his parents are lovely and I've been doing my best to keep a good relationship with them. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for telling the new neighbors that they got what they paid for, including being shunned by the neighborhood? Where I live, real estate developers have started snatching up family homes, bulldozing them and building enormous $2 million houses on the plots of land. The houses also stick out horribly in terms of aesthetics. Think single-level brick homes with a 3-level gigantic white and black box in the middle. My home's been in my family for several generations. We have always been known for having a large, beautiful garden. We invited over kids to help with gardening, we gave away so many veggies, we'd hold parties, etc. It's been a neighborhood treasure for years. Until developers snatched up the lot next door, bulldozed and erected an enormous house that blocked out the light to most of the garden. Many of us tried to fight it with the city, but everything was denied. It was heartbreaking. Our neighborhood has been changed forever. This was a link to my family and I almost have had to go through a grieving process for it. The new owners moved in and were not welcomed warmly by people in the neighborhood. I avoided them for as long as I could, other than politely waving or nodding. It was a young couple in their early 20s. We finally came face to face and the woman asked if we could chat. She said that they felt like maybe they'd done something wrong when they moved in, or if they aren't pulling in their trash bins or something, being too loud, etc., because people haven't been very friendly. The guy says that he's surprised considering it felt like a nice and somewhat affluent neighborhood, and given the price, he was expecting friendly neighbors. I asked if they had done any research about the area. They said that they moved from California, so no. I said that maybe that was their mistake? They said they didn't know what I meant, so I asked if they'd ever looked in our backyard. They said yes and said they think the garden is cute. I said yes, the garden that now has about half less sunlight than before that house was built was a neighborhood treasure. The guy said, well, it's not our fault you built the garden there, is it? I said, well, you guys got what you paid for. $2 million for a house that everyone in the neighborhood hates. I said that I hoped it was worth it and wished them a nice day. When I told another neighbor about the exchange, she told me that she does feel bad for them moving without having any idea what they were getting themselves into. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for asking someone with an invisible disability to move seats? Myself, 28M, and my partner, 31F, were recently riding the underground. My partner is 8 months pregnant and looks heavily pregnant too. No one could mistake her for being any different. She's not particularly mobile either now, and we've taken to riding the underground more, even for shorter journeys, just to allow her to rest more frequently when we are out and about. We jumped on the Circle line today and it was a particularly busy service during the rush hour with people packed in tightly and standing throughout the aisle. On trips like this I would look for one of the nearby priority seats reserved near the doors and would ask someone to vacate it to allow my partner to sit down. On all occasions up until now we have never had a problem. Those who were sat in the seats could see my partner would struggle to stand on a busy train and will give up the seat without hesitation. On this particular day, one of the seats is occupied by an elderly gentleman with a walking stick, probably mid-80s, and one by a younger man, probably mid-20s. I make what I think is my best judgment call and ask the younger man if he would give up the seat for my partner. He replies that he has autism and that his disability allows him to use a priority seat too. I do understand that people have less visible disabilities and that under normal circumstances, he should be allowed to use the priority seat. However, I also felt that despite this, it wasn't a physical impairment and he was more capable of standing than my partner, who had been stood up for a long time and really needed to rest at this point. When I tried to explain this to him, he became very defensive and called me an asshole for not appreciating his needs too. Eventually, others began to overhear what was being said and someone else voluntarily offered up a normal seat. But the experience left me wondering if I was an asshole for insisting this person needed a priority seat less than my girlfriend. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for telling my mom that I won't put my future on pause just because she decided to start over? I, 18F, am my mom's, 41F, first and oldest child. She and my dad weren't together and I lived with him from a very young age because she was busy with her career. So, while she was around for my younger years, she wasn't as present as she told me she would have liked to be. She has a husband, 38M. He's a nice guy, and he treats her like a queen, so I'm happy she's met him. He and my mom wanted a kid of their own, so they ended up having my little brother earlier this year. I love my brother, and I like spending time with him, but I'm very aware that our age gap is going to make a normal sibling relationship a bit unachievable. I was a dual-enrolled college/high school student, so I got my associates the same time I got my high school diploma. The college I transferred to has a study abroad program that I got a full ride scholarship for. I'm set to go next year, and I'm seriously so excited. My dad was really happy for me when I told him, and so was my stepdad, but my mom didn't seem all that excited about it. She told me later that she doesn't think me doing school in another country is a good idea. I thought at first that maybe it was just her worrying about me being alone or something, so I tried to reassure her by telling her my friend was in the same program so we'd be together. She clarified that her biggest concern was how much time I'd be spending away from home, seeing as how it wouldn't be practical for me to fly back for all the holidays I would have visited if I were to be in the country. She said me going away during my little brother's earliest years was going to make it difficult for the two of us to really know each other the way we would if I were around. I told her that it's not like I'd never come back or anything, and by the time I'm home again he probably won't even be in school yet, so I'd still be around for his early years. She insisted that it wouldn't be the same, and that I should want to stay here anyway because a good sister wouldn't want to leave her little brother. I got upset at that and told her that I never asked to be a sister, especially not this far into my life, and that it's not fair of her to want me to put my future on pause all because she decided she needed to start over again with motherhood. That really upset her, and I didn't feel like arguing anymore, so I just went over to my dad's house and I've been here ever since. I did tell him what happened, and he said that I should choose what I feel is best for myself, and no choice I make about this would make me a bad older sister or even a bad daughter. That did make me feel a little better about it, but I still feel kind of awful. I love my mom, I love my brother too, but I don't want to throw away this opportunity. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for installing a lock on the bathroom door after my brother-in-law kept barging in? My F25 husband, M30, brother-in-law, M33 moved in with us after his divorce few weeks ago. The problem I have is that he started barging into the bathroom whenever I'm using it. He never knocks or anything. Another thing is that he only does this when it's me in the bathroom, not his brother. I told my husband about what I'd noticed, but he laughed it off and called me paranoid. It was embarrassing because his brother would see me exposed and it made me uncomfortable. My husband said he spoke to him and he apologized but did it again. When my husband and I got married, we promised to not have locks or lock each other out of any room. So the bathroom didn't have a lock. I was really considering getting a lock, and I let my husband know that if his brother walks in on me in the bathroom one more time then a lock will instantly be installed. He didn't say anything. Well, yesterday, brother-in-law walked in on me showering. He knew I would be in the shower but barged in anyone claiming he needed to pee. I had enough. I went out and got a lock and installed it. My husband got home, saw it and blew up on me saying I violated an agreement that I was part of and went against his wishes, being uncomfortable with locks in the house. He demanded I remove it and promised and guaranteed that his brother won't walk in on me again, but I refused. He's been pissed about it since then and is giving the silence treatment. Info: I'm not close with my brother-in-law, my husband is. I don't even talk to him that much and I barely even sat with him at any gathering before he moved in with us. Upat date. So before I provide an update on this situation, it's worth noting that my brother-in-law used to do this with the bedroom too, but at least I'm not always exposed in the bedroom. So my husband came home and I told him the lock will not be removed till his brother leaves, and his reaction was to try and remove the lock himself and tell me to quit acting childishy. What I did was not shout or scream but pack a bag and go to my mom's house for the next few days or so till this gets resolved somehow. On my way out I saw my brother-in-law in the driveway smoking. He knew what the argument between me and my husband was about, but instead of stepping up to fix it he offered to take me to my mom's house, saying that my husband could use some space from me. This made me cry the whole Uber ride to my mom's house. The reason I feel offended is because brother-in-law tend to be hurtful when he talks about others. I did all I could to win his approval, but he thinks less of me and thinks I'm childish, just like my husband says.
Am I the asshole for canceling my credit card after my boyfriend refused to return it to me? I'll preface by saying that me, 27, and my boyfriend, 30, have been together for 3 years and a half. I've been jumping from one job to another while he has been unemployed due to health issues that affected his performance at work. Usually, I'm the one handling rent, bills, groceries, etc. I use my credit card to make any purchase I want. Last week, my boyfriend out of nowhere asked for my credit card. I asked why, since I'm the one who handles payments and supermarket trips. He told me he wanted to buy some food and I agreed to let him take it but told him to return it later. He got back later and when I asked about my credit card, he was like, "What credit card?" I thought he was joking, so I told him to just give it back. He said he'd just keep it with him. I asked why and he said so he could start handling paying for stuff on my behalf. I felt uncomfortable. I said I'd rather not burden him with this stuff and asked him to hand over the credit card. He refused and said that he'll just keep it since it doesn't have that much money anyway. I was livid. I tried to argue, but he told me to just trust him and let him keep it and swore he won't spend a penny from it. Next morning I went and canceled it, then registered a new one. He must have had tried to use it because he called and was confused, asking why the credit card was not valid anymore. I told him it's because I canceled it and registered a new one. He lost it and started scolding me, saying he couldn't believe I had this level of petty, and kept on about how I don't trust him with my finances, and how financially abusive I have become lately. I hung up on him. The argument continued at home and he called me paranoid and unreasonable and all that. Then he started cold shouldering me and sulking about it for days. I do feel like I hurt his feelings and showed an amount of distrust towards him. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for refusing to return my neighbor's special binoculars unless his wife comes and gets them? I 28 recently moved into a new neighborhood. All my neighbors are lovely. Especially my next door neighbor, bless his heart, wink wink. He's married and has 2 kids. I noticed that he has been looking towards my house for a while. So far I'd caught him doing it twice. He had his binoculars with him and was basically, seemingly looking at my living room. I hate confrontation, so what I did was close the curtains and go about my day, but it started escalating. The other day he was peeking at my backyard, where I was sitting, from his balcony, and his binoculars fell in my backyard. I looked up and he was gone. He knew that I saw him. I took the binoculars and put them inside. In the evening, he came knocking on my door asking how I was done and whatnot. I rolled my eyes but kept it civil. He then brought up the binoculars and said that they must have fell in the backyard earlier today. I was like, wonder how that happened? He said something about his kids probably messing with them and asked if I could go get them for him. I said I have them, but I won't give them to him unless his wife comes and gets them herself. He looked at me shocked and angry and said that these binoculars are his, and they're special because he has them from when he was in military. And said that his wife has nothing to do with this. I told him that I will give them back once his wife shows up and asks for them. All he has to do is send her over. He threw a fit saying he can't send her because then she'll misunderstand the situation. I told him there is not misunderstanding if they're kids, we really the ones using the binoculars, and insisted I won't give them back till his wife comes and gets them. We got into an argument, but he kept his voice as low as he could, then left looking furious. He's been complaining about me wanting to stir drama and keeps demanding I return his binoculars back to him and leave his wife out of it. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for taking money from the dress budget we had to pay for the iPad my fiance's kid broke? My fiance and I are getting married in 3 months. We both have a kid from a previous relationship, my daughter Spencer, 15F, and her daughter Emma, 8F. The kids get along just fine, not really close because of their ages, but they're friendly and good. My ex and I bought Spencer an iPad last year and she uses it most than she uses her laptop. She draws in it both as a hobby and for school. She has some kind of diary and several other things I don't know because I'm not an Apple person. She takes her iPad everywhere to the point my ex has bought her several cases and thinks to personalize it. Emma likes it because it looks cute, but both my fiance and I have to tell her that she's not allowed to use it and that we will buy one for her soon. My fiance said after the wedding, since we're on a budget now, and I agreed because she's the one calling the shots on Emma. Well, Emma likes to sit by the stairs and watch videos on my or my fiance's phone. 5 days ago, she took Spencer's iPad and sat there. She got scared when she heard my fiance calling her and dropped it. It broke the screen completely and my daughter was so sad. I took it to see if it could be fixed, but the guy said that it'll be cheaper to just buy another one. My fiance said that we could get it when we get Emma's, but that wasn't fair since my daughter shouldn't have to wait that long for a mistake Emma made. Then my fiance said all of her money is currently going to her mother-in-law, bridesmaids and mom dresses, and I said I'll take the money from there and buying Spence a new one. I guess she didn't believe me because she laughed, and the next day I went to buy it and paid for the card we use for the wedding expenses. It has both of our money in it. Both my fiance and I receive notifications when we use it, and I got home. I dropped my daughter at my ex's. She came at me, calling me an a-hole and saying she'll now have to get cheaper dresses. She's calling me an a-hole because I stole from her. I didn't, as I said. It has both of our money and it's a shared account, and says Spence could have waited a bit. Am I the asshole for refusing to change rooms despite being the most practical thing? My 16F dad, 36M, married his wife Becca, 42F, 2 years ago. She has 3 kids, 14F twins and 12M, and I've known them for 5 years now, and I don't really get along with them apart from my stepbrother. For some clarification, my mom is not in the picture anymore and neither is their dad. My dad just received my grandparents' house, Granny passed away, and we're planning to move there. It has the same amount of rooms, 4, but it has a bigger yard, a basement, and my dad says we can get a pool in a few years. I used to spend weekends at my grandparents', and so, I already have a room there, my dad's old room. My grandparents made some renovations so I could have my own bathroom and a bigger closet there, so when my dad said we were moving, he said I had to get rid of half of my furniture because I already have stuff there. I'll admit, my room there is nicer than the one I have here because I was my grandparents' only grandchild and they kept it modern. It was obvious that I was going to keep my room there. Becca didn't said anything that time because she didn't know the room had a full bath and a walk-in closet yet. They visited the house last week to start moving some stuff while my step-siblings and I were at school, and at night, during dinner, Becca said that I would have to choose some other room because the girls should get the one I use. Both my dad and I were confused, and she said it was better and the most practical thing since the twins were 2 and they needed a bigger closet and would be better for them to have their own bathroom. I said sorry, but no, because my grandparents did all those modifications for me and that has been my room for as long as I could remember. The girls and her wanted to push the subject, but my dad didn't let them and told my stepmom that they're gonna talk later. I guess my dad shut the thought down because the twins have been sulking and my stepmom asked me to give it a thought because it wasn't fair for my sisters. The twins straight out called me an a-hole and my friend said I should give up the room because it's true that they need the space more. Am I the asshole for telling a mom that if her kid dies it's on her? I, 25F, work in a stable. On Saturday mornings we have beginner groups for kids that want to start riding. Them and their parents gather for about 1.5 hours every Saturday. When the kids have their first lesson I teach them the first 3 rules that must be followed at all times. 1. No running in the stables / around the horses. 2. No screaming in the stables. 3. Never ever walk up / stand behind a horse. This new group had their 3rd lesson today. Usually the kiddos are really good at following the rules and listen to what I say. If they don't, their parents usually step up and get them to behave. But I have this one boy who's been a problem since day 1. He's loud, he runs, and he's very disruptive. After the first lesson I pulled his mother aside and asked that she help keep him calm, and if he's not listening to me it would be very helpful if she told him off. I guess she didn't listen as last week we had the same issues. This time I told him that if he didn't listen to me he would not get to ride the horses. He threw a tantrum, she didn't help. Today I was dreading teaching him, and I don't know if my patience is wearing thin or if he was worse than usual, but it was driving me crazy. At one point he's bolting full speed ahead towards a horse facing away from him. Before he can get too close I managed to grab his arm and pull him to a stop. I guess I grabbed him a little hard because he yelled. His mother storms up to me and grabs her son and tells me not to touch him, and how dare I do this to him. I tell her he's a danger to himself and others. She disagrees and argues with me, and at this point I'm fed up and tell her that if he dies in this stable because he scares a horse it would be on her. She's furious and grabs her son and storms off. The other parents seem relieved about the fact that he's probably not coming back, but when I tell a friend about this she calls me freaking psycho for saying that to a mom. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for refusing to split rent with my boyfriend? I, F23, have been dating my boyfriend Jake, M23, since our freshman year of college. In our last year of undergrad, we decided to rent an apartment together. We split everything 50-50, including utilities, groceries, and rent. We continued living together in the same town as our college after graduation, but recently, we both got jobs in Chicago and we are currently living downtown. My dad works in real estate, and he has multiple investment properties. My dad generously allowed me to live in one of his properties rent-free, but he said that my boyfriend would have to pay him $400 a month for rent. My dad is very protective, but he has been nothing but kind to my boyfriend. My dad's reasoning for making my boyfriend pay rent is that he wants to be sure that my boyfriend is with me for me, and not because he will have a free place to live. Keep in mind, If my dad was renting this apartment out to tenants, he would charge $2,100 a month for rent. Very ritzy building in the middle of downtown Chicago. My boyfriend is mad at me because he asked me for my half of the $400 for rent, and I explained to him that I will not be paying rent. My dad is only charging him. He says that we have been splitting rent for the past 2 years, so why would we stop now? Our rent in our college town was $1,200, so we were both paying $600 a month. Our apartment in Chicago is significantly nicer and he is paying $200 less a month than what he was in college. Is the idea that my dad doesn't charge me for rent, but charges my boyfriend so crazy? Should I suck it up and pay half because I can afford it? Edit, Jake and I still split utilities and groceries 50-50, and when we go out on date nights, we switch off who pays for it. If he pays 1 week, I'll pay the next. Am I the asshole for not taking the next elevator when a mom with 7 children demanded it of me? A neighbor of mine has 7 children and they are all under the age of 9. I have seen her many times, and she always demands people take the next elevator because she has kids who need to get home. She has physically shoved into the elevators and forced people out, including my elderly father. I was on my way home from work, I take public transit, and she was on the bus with all kids. They were screaming and running up and down the aisle, basically making such a scene that the driver asked her to have the kids sit down before they get hurt. Sure enough, one of the kids was spinning around one of the poles and bumped her head as we were going over the train tracks near my place and started screaming. She looked like she was physically okay, no blood, not even a red mark, but she screeched the rest of the ride to the building. I was first in the building and hit the elevator button. She came in with her double stroller and her gaggle of children running around her as I stepped into the elevator and held the door for her. She told me that I would have to get out and wait for the next one. I said, "Excuse me?" She heavy-sighed at me and said, "My stroller won't fit in with you in here. Get out and take the next one." I refused, saying I would make myself as tiny as I could, but I was staying in the elevator. She became irate, pointed at her kids and said, "Do you see what I'm dealing with here?" I said I understood that it's overwhelming, but I had worked a long day and I needed to get home. I said in or out, because I'm going now. She pulled her stroller and kids out, calling me an asshole the entire time. A few people were waiting behind her and got in with me. 2 began thanking me for standing up to her because she does this all the time, but the other one called me an asshole for not being sympathetic to her situation. I don't think people should have to make constant accommodations for people just because they have kids, especially when they're rude and demanding. But am I the asshole here? Edit, people are concerned with the way that this woman has treated my father. She did not physically touch him. He was in the elevator and she pushed her stroller in, waved her arms and yelled at him to get out several times. Because he's hearing impaired, he was very confused and only knew that she was yelling at him, and he got off the elevator. Had she put her hands on him, charges would have been filed. Am I the asshole for filing a report against my coworker after I found him looking through my purse? There's this coworker Martin 31M, who always forgets where he leaves his stuff. He always forgets his phone charger at home and borrows mine to use. I don't mind lending him my charger. He's a nice person and I love maintaining a good relationship with my coworkers. Especially male coworkers. The other day, I was in the restroom, then when I walked back into the office, I saw Martin with both hands inside my purse, literally looking through it. I was shocked. I have highly personal stuff that I carry in my purse. I freaked out and snatched my purse out of his hands, asking what he was doing. He got nervous and said he was looking for my charger. I asked why he thought it was okay for him to look through my purse, and he said that, since I always lend him my charger, then he thought I wouldn't mind if he looked for it in my purse when he couldn't ask me because I was out of the office and he needed it right then. I told him he violated my privacy and disrespected my boundaries. I went and filed a report with the company's headquarters after telling them what happened. They said it was unacceptable and promised to deal with it. Martin got in trouble for this and he and my coworkers were pissed, saying I overreacted and went way overboard by reporting this situation. My female coworker told me to get over myself and stop crying victim over a simple misunderstanding. I felt very guilty after this. Now I think I might have blown this out of proportion and overacted. Am I the asshole for telling my friend she should have thought before having kids if she wanted more freedom? My friend, Isla, 26F, and I, 26F, have known each other since middle school. We applied to the same college and got in. However, Isla got pregnant after a few months and decided to drop out. She's had 3 more accidental pregnancies and is now a stay-at-home mother of 4. I was telling her the other day that I'm going traveling to Europe, and if all goes well, I will be moving there. She got really annoyed with me and told me that it must be nice to have all the freedom and no responsibilities, like hello, I work, I'm doing my PhD, it's not like I'm just sitting on my ass, because I don't have kids. This isn't not the first time she took jabs at me for that, but it was the first time she was this rude. I told her that if she wanted to be free and go off whenever and wherever she wanted, she should have used protection and thought before having kids. Our conversation was at my house and her kids weren't there. She got really mad and left, slamming the door on her way out. She hasn't replied to my messages, but she's starting telling everyone what an awful person I am. Am I the asshole?